If you watched Steven Spielberg's new movie Disclosure Day and are wondering what on earth it was all about, you're in the right place. If you haven't watched Disclosure Day, now is an excellent time to click away before I deep dive into what it's all about, and we'll get to my more personal review and thoughts on the movie towards the end of this video. First and foremost, we have to keep in mind that although over the decades Spielberg has covered a wide variety of genres, he always seems to go back to sci-fi, in particular the alien genre. Spielberg grew up during the late 40s and 50s, right at the height of public fascination with UFOs and alien encounters. He then said that after his parents' divorce in 1960, he filled the void with an imaginary alien companion. Then at age 18, after watching a meteor shower, he became fascinated even more with the great unknown, with space, with alien life, the possibility of life beyond Earth, and inspired by that experience, he made a now lost sci-fi film, but many of the ideas from it would later reappear in one of his most beloved movies, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. On this point, I'd also recommend watching The Fabelmans, which shows how Spielberg started making these early short films, as well as the effects his parents' relationship had on him growing up. Over the years, he returned to aliens again and again. He was inspired by Ridley Scott's Alien to make War of the Worlds. He made E.T., and then a few years ago, an article about a mysterious Pentagon UFO program reignited that fascination and eventually led him to make Disclosure Day. In Disclosure Day, we follow the lives of two seemingly separated characters as their paths begin to cross. Josh O'Connor's cybersecurity expert Daniel, and Emily Blunt's journalist, meteorologist, weather woman Margaret. Although they don't seem to know one another, in reality their paths already crossed as children in 1996. Let's ignore the maths about Emily Blunt's age here, which makes no sense. They were visited by aliens, taken off to a mysterious lab, and in pure old school alien abduction style, subjected to experiments. In the movie, people who have had experiences with non-human life forms are called experiencers. These experiments left them with abilities that begin to emerge throughout the movie. Daniel, for example, can understand the alien language in the form of mathematics. And if you're interested in this concept, I would highly recommend checking out Arrival, about scientists trying to communicate with a totally new alien language. The aliens are shown to have shape-shifting abilities, or at least the ability to appear different to the eyes of others. For example, they appear as animals to not frighten the children. Even the laboratory is disguised as a sort of cute Hansel and Gretel style cottage. Throughout the movie, we see various animals such as birds, deer, foxes, with very questionable CGI given the budget of the movie, which in reality are aliens observing. The memories of these experiments were then suppressed and over the years only appear in the form of fragmented memories, odd dreams. Margaret even speaks of never finding herself at home and that one day she might find her place, and many years later they are living completely separate lives. Margaret is a popular journalist, a presenter, weather woman, and Daniel is a cybersecurity expert who even did prison time because of the way he used his skills. Once released, he was immediately recruited by this mysterious organization, Wardex, pretty ominous name. Wardex is a secret arm of the US government that has been concealing knowledge of alien life on Earth for decades. They possess files detailing human-alien contact dating all the way back to Roswell in the 1940s, as well as pieces of powerful extraterrestrial technology. Not only have they hidden this information, but we discover they have also abused their power and used alien technology for their own purposes while suppressing the truth. Now, either there are similar agencies in other countries around the world, or this is another instance of aliens only landed in the United States. Anyway, their job is to do everything in their power to stop this information from reaching the public. The argument is that the truth is too big to handle, but I think the film proposes something deeper. If humanity suddenly realized we're not the center of everything, that we're just a tiny speck in a much larger universe, then a lot of the structures we build our lives around might start to crumble. Borders might seem less important, wars might seem pointless, the way we consume and compete might change. The big question the film asks is whether that collapse would actually be a bad thing. Daniel's girlfriend Jane, for example, argues that people need to believe in something, whether it be God or something bigger than themselves, and at first is against releasing this information. The timing of the film is also relevant here. The film opens with the United States moving to DEFCON 2, and by the end of the film it is announced that we're basically on the brink of World War III. So there is a genuine question about whether releasing information about aliens in this moment would be beneficial or would even make things worse. While Wardex is doing absolutely everything possible to keep this information secret, various of their employees are starting to resign and form a group of whistleblowers dedicated to to releasing the truth. Daniel steals all the footage, even pieces of alien technology, and goes on the run with his girlfriend Jane, leading to the parts of the film which I like the least. There are a lot of shootouts, escapes, and car chases in which these supposedly elite government agents somehow manage to shoot like stormtroopers while constantly being outsmarted by Daniel. One important piece of alien technology which Wardex weaponizes is a device which I can only compare to a sort of magic wand. It can control people, manipulate their movements, enter into their minds, and seemingly perform a whole range of functions. Later it's shown restoring electricity, granting people invisibility. It's also implied it could have some sort of explosive capabilities. We never get a complete explanation, but it seems to be able to control a source of energy. We even see it eventually combust after being used for too long. At times it reminded me of the One Ring from the Lord of the Rings, especially when they escape while invisible. Now, of course, it's a very convenient plot device to have a piece of technology with vaguely defined powers, because then you can conveniently make it do whatever the story needs. Wardex leader Scanlon even says it nearly killed him, but it wouldn't be too crazy to imagine that other life forms created technology that goes beyond our imagination, beyond what we managed to invent. Again, we always tend to assume that we're just the smartest creatures and have a perfect understanding of how energy works. Christopher Nolan's Interstellar plays with a similar idea, asking what might happen if humanity learned to interact with other dimensions, such as time itself, and even questioning whether something like love could have a measurable effect on reality. In a more light-hearted and entertaining way, even Project Hail Mary introduces similar concepts. Wardex uses this device mostly to enter other people's minds and manipulate them, and when they enter religious Jane's mind, it becomes nearly a possession scene in which she's praying to be freed from Satan, while Wardex tries to manipulate her into killing Daniel and hand over the files. And while Daniel is on the run from Wardex, with his now possessed girlfriend Jane on his tail, trying to get to the rendezvous point with the other whistleblowers, meteorologist Margaret is preparing for what is seemingly just another normal day at work. But before she gets to work, a cardinal enters her home and appears to communicate something with her. There is actually a lot of symbolism associated with cardinals. They are seen as symbols of hope, renewal, warmth, vitality, spiritual guidance. Some people even associate them with messages from loved ones or forces beyond our understanding. We now know this was most likely an alien in disguise, triggering Margaret's powers to emerge. She suddenly begins speaking various languages without realizing it, intuitively understands people's thoughts and emotions, reads minds, seems able to instantly know details about complete strangers. She can also influence other and even appear differently to people. All of this reaches a breaking point during the morning weather report when she starts speaking in a bizarre alien language, which is later translated to don't be afraid of what you don't know. Naturally, her partner is very concerned, whisks her off to the hospital where doctors say there's nothing wrong with her. However, the footage of her talking bizarrely becomes viral and Wardex becomes interested in it. So Margaret goes on the run. Even she isn't sure why, but she has this feeling that she must escape. While escaping, she begins having visions of Daniel and eventually tracks him down to a black site. His possessed girlfriend Jane revealed information to Wardex when she saw the name of the motel they were staying at. So Daniel and Margaret's paths cross again, even though they are not totally clear of the full scale of the mission. They just know they are part of something bigger and need to get some information out there. They managed to escape the black site even thanks to Margaret changing her appearance and appearing to people as their loved ones, leaving them in disbelief. Together they eventually make it to the rendezvous point, although by now this whole experience is really taking a toll on Margaret. Out of the two, she is the one that knows the least about the mission, about the information, and is started to feel like she's going completely crazy, that she's possessed. And this escalates even more when at the meeting point Margaret discovers they built a perfect recreation of a childhood home. This entire operation has been organized by whistleblower Hugo, who I believe is one of the most interesting characters. He doesn't get nearly as much screen time as Daniel or Margaret, but from the little information we're given, it becomes clear that he is probably one of the people with the deepest knowledge of the UFO phenomenon, and even recruited Daniel years earlier, knowing they would one day reach this point. I believe he's an experiencer just like Daniel and Margaret, and so Wardex cannot penetrate his mind, as if the aliens protected those who they've come in contact with. Hugo rebuilt Margaret's childhood home to help her reconnect with the memory of the night of the abduction and finally unlock what happened that night and to help her reveal the truth. This whole scene actually felt like a little homage to E.T., particularly with the scenes in the childhood bedroom and the attempts to reconnect with an extraterrestrial presence. After successfully unlocking the memory of the abduction and showing us what happened that night, Margaret finally comes to terms with what happened to her and feels a sort of sense of peace and is ready to pass on the information to the rest of the world. The whole team head off to her television station with Wardex on their tail, who attempt one last time to sabotage the operation. They start blowing things up, but nothing works. Eventually, even their leader gives up, probably after experiencing Margaret disguised as his wife, making him realize the importance of what they're trying to convey to the world. Margaret gets on the air while the world is anxiously watching basically the breakout of World War III, and she starts revealing everything. She releases the footage, she explains what Wardex has been hiding all of these years. Then for their final trick, the whistleblowers bring out an actual alien, probably rescued from Wardex labs. The alien then whispers the message, which Margaret prepares to reveal to the world, but we never hear it. To be fair, I'm happy it ended like that. I don't think this was necessarily done to set up a sequel, given Margaret's calm reaction, the themes of empathy throughout the movie, the aliens' peaceful nature, if we ignore them doing experiments on children, and the fact that revelation seems to shift people's focus away from the war. I think it's highly likely the message is peaceful. What I definitely don't think is that this movie is some sort of US propaganda again, if we even think that the United States are the only country that aliens would ever contact, to slowly mentally prepare us to one day receiving information about aliens existing. I often put on a tinfoil hat, but not to this extent. When aliens will be introduced to us, it won't be through Steven Spielberg. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not particularly fond of this big action side of the movie, which I don't think was heavily advertised in the trailers and takes up a very large portion of the runtime. It had a very exaggerated, unrealistic tone to me, especially that whole train escape sequence, the car chases at a just normal pace, Daniel sneaking around the Wardex agents without them even noticing. What I was more interested in was the film's fascination with humanity itself, our collective desire to understand our place in the universe, whether we actually want answers to questions about alien life, God, or a higher power, and whether we would even be capable of understanding those answers if we got them. I think it's very clear we're not the only living things in the universe. We are just a speck of dust in something so vast that it's difficult for us to even comprehend. That doesn't mean that the aliens would necessarily look like the ones shown in Disclosure Day. I personally think Spielberg went with that look because it was first introduced in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the films also share similar themes, especially the idea of people being subconsciously drawn towards something extraterrestrial. Realistically, alien life could even look like something boring, like bacteria. Honestly, films like Arrival or even Project Hail Mary again probably offer less stereotypical interpretations of alien life. The movie also touches a lot on religion. At one point, a nun explains that the existence of aliens doesn't necessarily contradict belief in God, because humanity is described as special creatures on Earth and not necessarily in the entire universe. Personally, I disagree with the concept that Earth is ours and that we are the most special creatures on it. I remember environmentalist and explorer Paul Rosalie once talking on one of the many podcasts he was invited on about how if aliens ever arrived here, they might not even be interested in speaking to humans. They might go straight to elephants or another species of animals. It's us who place ourselves at the center of everything. That being said, I totally believe that faith and science can coexist, especially when you consider the sheer scale of the universe. The force that creates stars, destroys worlds, gives us life, and eventually turns us back into dust. It's something almost impossible for our brains to fully process. Think of the Artemis 2 astronauts. Victor Glover spoke about God when looking back at Earth from the moon, and people immediately rushed to play the keyboard bongos and mock him as if science and spirituality are mutually exclusive. I've read of astronauts describing how space forces you to confront concepts so enormous and abstract that normal human language and mind struggle to express them. All in all, I'm always happy to enjoy a good, interesting movie. Based on the marketing, I was expecting something a little more deeper and less focused on the action sci-fi side of things. So for one of my most anticipated movies of 2026, I did feel a little disappointed when I walked out of the cinema yesterday. But for now, I think I've spoken way too much, so I would love to hear what you think of Disclosure Day. Did you enjoy it? Did you agree with my thoughts on it? Let me know everything with a comment down below. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.